The phantom airship of the Victorian skies. Slow cinematic pan across 1893 London. Gas lamps glowing through fog. A slow tilt-up reveals ornate building facades disappearing into the thick mist above. Close up on a single gas lamp flame flickering weakly against the dense white fog. Figures are vaguely seen huddled beneath an awning, their forms vague in the pervasive fog. A hint of something vast and silent begins to emerge high above the rooftops. The camera pans upward, revealing a massive, pale blue, ethereal glow far overhead. Awe-struck faces of Victorian citizens are illuminated by an eerie blue light from above. Workers pause their tasks, dropping tools as they stare silently skyward in collective shock. Beams of pale light cut sharply through the surrounding fog layers from the airship's hull. A young boy hides behind his mother's skirts, peeking out with wide, fearful eyes. All traffic on a busy thoroughfare has momentarily halted, every head craned toward the sky. A single, slow-moving beam of light sweeps across a church spire before vanishing into the fog. Intense close-up on varied reactions: fear, religious awe, and intense scientific fascination. A lone policeman attempts to direct traffic, looking utterly bewildered by the circumstances. A high-angle shot shows the street crowd looking up, the palpable shadow of the massive object above gripping the city. A nervous clockmaker adjusts his spectacles while trying to maintain composure. The narrator notes the profound, unifying effect this impossible sight had on the disparate populations of London. The phantom airship remains perfectly still in the upper atmosphere, its blue glow the only persistent element. A stack of freshly printed newspapers slams onto a wooden counter with a bold headline. An old sketch of the airship fades in as the narrator reads a trembling diary excerpt. It moved without sail or engine, like a ghost navigating the clouds. I confess, my hand trembled so fiercely I feared I had gone mad. The sketch dissolves into a charcoal illustration of the ship passing over St. Paul's Cathedral. Close up on hurried, sensationalized news reports from different districts of London. A journalist hunches over parchment, rapidly writing by the light of a single desk lamp. The narrator details the rapid public consumption of the story, as the impossible sight becomes tomorrow's gossip. A montage of different newspaper mastheads shows increasingly wild interpretations of the ship's origin. Focus on a scientific journal. Drawings showing incorrect attempts to diagram the ship's propulsion. Focus on the diary line. A hue of blue that I have never witnessed in nature, cold and promising ill tidings. Slow pan across a newsstand, showcasing the saturation of the mystery across the city's media. The final image is the original, faint visual of the airship, seen through the lens of documentation. Inside a bustling Victorian laboratory filled with sparking induction coils and complex apparatuses, Dr. Alistair Reid stares frustratedly at blueprints of known Zeppelin designs. Professor Evelyn Hayes emphatically points to a complex vector diagram on the chalkboard. Extreme close-up on equations, devolving from established physics into abstract, unknown symbols. A scientist examines a small, dense piece of meteorite under a microscope, finding no match for the presumed composition. Focus on a blueprint of the airship, repeatedly annotated with, "Impossible by," Dr. Alistair Reid. Professor Evelyn Hayes pulls out a rare, ancient text suggesting a metaphysical explanation. A slow shot tracks across various scientific instruments, none able to properly capture the phenomenon. The two scientists confer in silhouette against a window showing the distant blue glow through the laboratory glass. Dr. Alistair Reid admits defeat. It obeys no known laws of lift or thrust. Professor Evelyn Hayes suggests they must attempt direct observation, preparing specialized equipment for ascent. The scientists look determinedly toward the sky, realizing the need for direct engagement. A massive silk balloon is slowly inflated by fierce jets of flame against the dark morning sky. Captain Silas Vance secures ropes with practiced efficiency, his face resolute. Thomas Finch checks the barometer and gauges in the wicker gondola, securing supplies. The team prepares to cut the tether lines as the roar of the burner dominates the ambient sound. The balloon lifts off the ground in a slow, majestic ascent, leaving the ground crew shrinking below. The camera tracks the balloon rising through dense layers of low-hanging fog, mimicking the phantom ship's path. Inside the gondola, Captain Silas Vance uses a long-range brass telescope to locate the target. Thomas Finch points excitedly, the phantom airship is suddenly much closer, filling the frame with its intense glow. The balloon's burner must be fired frequently, creating dramatic bursts of orange light in the cool blue environment. The camera captures the sensation of nearing the target. The airship is impossibly large and silent. Captain Silas Vance gestures for the pilot to steer closer, leaning perilously over the edge. The camera pans from the rough balloon fabric to the smooth, alien light of the phantom vessel as they draw parallel. Captain Vance secures a rope and steps onto the smooth, cold hull of the airship. Thomas Finch follows, looking back nervously at their descending balloon. A seamless hatch opens with a pneumatic sigh as they touch a specific point on the hull. They step into a long, dark corridor lined with seamless, pulsing metallic structures. Intricate, glowing patterns resembling ancient runes or complex circuitry cover the wall surface. They pass banks of silent machinery made of unknown, crystalline material powering unseen mechanisms. Thomas Finch touches a control panel which briefly illuminates, showing abstract symbols. They cautiously navigate a junction, their footsteps echoing unnervingly in the vast structure. Captain Silas Vance signals silence as they hear a faint, deep, harmonic resonance vibrating through the deck plating. The corridor opens into a larger space, showing complex, curving metallic structures that seem organic. They peer around a corner, catching the first glimpse of an intensely bright, central chamber ahead. The slow exploration builds intense suspense as they approach the heart of the vessel. Captain Silas Vance steps off the gondola onto the metallic hull of the airship. Thomas Finch follows, peering nervously back at their rapidly descending tethered balloon. They find a hatch that opens with a near-silent pneumatic sigh as they touch a specific point on the hull. They step into a long, metallic corridor where walls pulse faintly with ambient blue light. Extreme close-up on the wall surface revealing intricate, glowing patterns resembling ancient runes or complex circuitry. They pass banks of machinery made of unknown, crystalline material, gears turning silently. Thomas Finch runs a gloved hand over a control panel that briefly illuminates with abstract symbols. They cautiously navigate junctions, their footsteps echoing unnervingly in the vast, empty structure. Captain Silas Vance signals for silence as they hear a faint, deep harmonic resonance vibrating through the deck. The corridor opens into a larger space showing complex, curving metallic structures that seem organic. The camera follows them as they move toward the source of the sound, their flashlights feeble. They peer around a corner, catching the first glimpse of an intensely bright, central chamber ahead. The golden core sphere pulses erratically, then fragments into brilliant shards of light. Slow-motion shot of metallic fragments on the walls beginning to dissolve into glittering particles. Captain Silas Vance grabs at Thomas Finch, pulling him backward rapidly toward the corridor entrance. External view. The massive airship structure rapidly loses its definition, becoming translucent and hazy. Inside, as they retreat, the floor beneath them loses its solidity, becoming wavy and insubstantial. Close up on crystalline elements of the ship's machinery dissolving into thin, luminous smoke that smells faintly of ozone. The explorers manage to exit the central chamber just as the opening seals shut in a final flash of intense white light. They race back down the corridor, which is now phasing in and out of visibility. The camera focuses on the balloon rapidly descending, pulling away from the rapidly vanishing anomaly. Looking back through the descent fog, the spot where the massive ship hung moments before is now completely empty, save for a few lingering, slow-drifting motes of blue light. The explorers are left clinging to their gondola, looking around in stunned silence at the empty sky. The narrator notes the sudden, absolute end to the phenomenon, leaving no physical trace. A sweeping view inside a modern high-tech archive facility, showing servers and digital reconstructions. Dr. Lena Cross appears as a clear hologram, gesturing towards a floating 3D wireframe model of the airship. Dr. Lena Cross explains the alien origin theory. The material composition suggests isotopic ratios impossible to create naturally on Earth. Animated recreation. The ship is shown traversing vast interstellar distances, reinforcing the alien hypothesis. Cut to a historical tech analyst, Professor Marcus Dale, who argues for the time travel hypothesis, displaying complex, theoretical spacetime diagrams. Professor Marcus Dale explains, the energy signature matches localized, extreme temporal displacement events, suggesting it wasn't crossing space, but time itself. Visual overlay. A CGI recreation of the core chamber, showing the gold sphere superimposed with theoretical diagrams of curved black holes or warp bubbles. A digital interface cycles rapidly through simulations of unknown propulsion methods, none stabilizing. The narrator interjects, noting that despite advanced technology, the core mechanism remains elusive. The modern scientists look reflective, acknowledging the profound mystery that remains unsolved. A final CGI shot of the Phantom ship superimposed perfectly over the modern London skyline, showing the consistency of its design across centuries. The camera lingers on the modern scientists, concluding that the event was real, documented, and utterly inexplicable. A wide, sweeping view of the modern London skyline, glass and steel replacing much of the Victorian stone. The ambient soundscape shifts from modern traffic noise to a low, rising harmonic resonance. A thick layer of fog begins to roll in from the river, mimicking the historical conditions. High above the tallest modern structures, small pinpricks of pale blue light begin to coalesce in the rising fog. The lights gradually merge, forming the unmistakable, impossible silhouette of the Phantom airship. Long, steady shot holding on the ship, hovering silently, just as before, its light illuminating the tops of the modern glass towers in an ethereal glow. Cut to an anonymous modern pedestrian, looking up from the street, dropping their illuminated smartphone in shock. Extreme close-up on the surface of the airship, the metallic texture now appears slightly more defined, perhaps suggesting an evolution or adaptation. The narrator returns for the final philosophical closing statement, spoken very slowly over the sustained visual. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved, merely witnessed. The skies above London hold secrets older than our science. And they always return to remind us. Slow zoom out, showing the entire modern city bathed in the ancient, ghostly blue light of the vessel. The ship remains static, defying gravity and logic, as the narrator concludes. Final fade to black, leaving only the faint residual blue afterimage on the screen.